Hello, I'm Christiana Manpour in Afghanistan. This is where an invading Soviet army met its final test and lost. It is where a superpower and the Cold War began to die. But instead of reaping glory, Afghanistan just reaped more war. After the US-backed rebels kicked the Red Army out, they turned against each other, and this place fell off the world's radar screen until now. Out of nowhere, it seems, a mystery army of Islamic fundamentalists calling themselves the Taliban has swept with lightning speed through this country right into this capital, Kabul. Armed with the Quran and the Kalashnikov, they are mostly illiterate. Here, they call them a peasant army, imposing its own harsh brand of religious law. And suddenly, everyone is asking, whose Islam is this? Suddenly, the world is watching again. Every day, the front lines north of Kabul shake with the sound of outgoing rocket fire. The Taliban are determined to hold on to the capital now that they've finally pushed out their main rival, Ahmad Shah Massoud. He is equally determined to get it back. So daily artillery duels in the foothills ruin yet more villages and set yet more people on the road. Old men, women, children, often barefoot, take their sheep and their cows and their chickens with them. This is their wealth. This family says it's been walking since midnight trying to reach safety. Everyone's afraid, especially the children. And all of this for a piece of ground lost, won, and lost again. This has been Afghanistan's story for the last 2 decades. Kabul's latest occupying force are Islamic fundamentalists who call themselves the Taliban. They entered the capital not with an orgy of rape, pillage and plunder, but with an assault on its relatively sophisticated society. Their aim, to reshape morals and principles in their image of Islam. And it's provoking a spirited debate. At this boys' school, some simply hate the Taliban.
Very bad people.
Others are relieved that they've stopped shelling the city.
When the Taliban come to Kabul, now we are happy because everything is good for us and they brought peace in our country.
But these boys are worried too. They are taking high school exams, wondering what their future will be. The Taliban has closed Kabul University. Many of the boys have sisters. Taliban says they must stay at home.
My sister was in university, but now she's at home. She's very unhappy about her lessons, about her university, about her future.
Taliban says girls and boys must be strictly segregated. Your girlfriends? Do you have girlfriends?
Yes, why not? Sure.
Outside? Can you go out with your girlfriend?
No.
If it's hard on the boys and the men who now have to swap their Western-style clothes for traditional dress and hats and beards, it's much worse for the women. Those who dare come out of their homes now view the world through the tight mesh of their all-enveloping wraps they are forced to wear. They cost $25 each. For those who do have jobs, that's 5 months' salary. But the Taliban says women can no longer work or get an education. Girls' schools are closed. A headmaster sits in splendid isolation, keeping the books, just in case the Taliban relents and lets his pupils back again. Not only school, but all women's programs have been stopped. Aid organizations, for instance, can no longer teach women or young girls about healthcare, sanitation, or mine awareness. Mines still account for most civilian deaths. Even the youngest understands something is not right. 10-year-old Aziza complains about having to stay home all day. We just do housework, cleaning, baking bread, and sweeping the floors, she says. Indeed, at the city orphanage, little girls are reduced to sweeping and minding the younger ones because most of the women who used to clean and all of those who taught class are staying away. We are their only visitors, the only break from countless hours just sitting alone, unsupervised in their rooms.
When we hear you're in trouble, you see how fast we come.
Terry Pitzner, the head of all United Nations aid operations in Kabul, spends most of his days trying to fill the gaps left by the new Taliban authorities, who may be a military force but have no experience in government.
It seems there's a vacuum. I think that they've never dealt with situations like this. They probably never dealt with orphanages. And so this is kind of floating out there, and it's not a priority right now. So we have to make sure it's our priority.
But how to do the job when all women staffers are at home?
We're looking for new ways to do it. We're looking for ways around the problem, but it's very difficult.
At the Oxfam charity, a group of professional women meets again for the first time since the Taliban told them to quit their jobs here 6 weeks ago. They've come out because they want the world to know their plight.
I love my work. It's my right to work, and I need to work because I got education in this country, and the government spent money on me and even my family, and I want to express myself to my society. I want to serve to my people, to my country.
Zakira is disabled, and she says that without work she just sits home and gets depressed. Fatana is a psychiatrist who says that these days Kabul's women feel like caged animals. The only thing we do, she says, is stay home and listen to the radio for news about what's allowed and what's forbidden. But despite the harsh new rule, some aid workers feel there's a trade-off.
Taliban have to be viewed in terms of the bigger history of what's happened in Afghanistan. This is 17 years of horrific war the country's been through. Almost 10% of the population has been killed. Almost 30% have become refugees or internally displaced. You put that in American terms, that's most of California is dead. Most of the West America has been displaced. That's a horrific thing to happen to a country. So I think within that context, you can understand that the biggest priority for most Afghans is what the Taliban have offered, which is security.
Security in exchange for a crackdown on personal freedoms. And people are asking, will the security last? Can the Taliban actually govern? How will they rebuild this devastated capital and get the country back on its feet again? Their edicts mystify Kabulis. The Taliban came to town banning kite flying and soccer, but allowing volleyball. Joy is something you rarely see these days. Though the Taliban has easily swept through the rural, conservative southern part of Afghanistan, it's meeting its first military and political test in the capital. Will it have to adapt to survive?
CNN International offers a world of news, but you may be missing many of our popular programs. Now, a weekly program schedule, CNN International This Week, is as close as you...
When the Taliban came to Kabul, their first statement was heard around the world. Here, on this square, they publicly hanged Najibullah, the puppet president left by the departing Soviets who'd been hiding out here for years. Then the Taliban started its crackdown on women, on TV, on music, and still they've given no hint on how they plan to govern or set this country back on its feet again. So what are the Taliban's plans? And what kind of impression do they think they left by executing Najibullah? We asked the Deputy Taliban Foreign Minister, Shir Mohammad Stanakzai.
The world, of course, that is their point of view. But we say that Najibullah was the killer of our nation, and according to our rules and regulation, he was supposed to be killed. If a man is killed, lakhs of our people, in no way, under no circumstances, he will be excused.
A lot of people on the outside are watching the actions taken by the Taliban. A lot of people want to know what you're going to do about the women issue. What about women's education, girls' education, women working, widows who have no other way to support themselves?
I know that, especially in Western news media, it's a propaganda against that we are against women education, which is not right, it's not correct.
But the girls can't go to school. We've been to schools here that are all closed.
We have just told them that for the time being, they should not come to office and school. So till the time that we can come out with some sort of solution, or we can provide them separate places so that they can be educated or they can work in offices.
What do you say about women who are working and who have to work to support themselves.
About those women, we have already decided. Some of these women who are working in government offices, we have just told them that till next second order they should be sitting in their home and they will be paid at their home. And moreover, there is a tradition of our society that a husband who is died in the battlefield, the widow of that man will not be left alone. The relatives, they will feed her, they will take care of her.
But you know how poor the people are here. The government, you say, doesn't have the money to subsidize them. Some of these widows have to beg, have to work in bakeries simply to survive.
As I told you, they have been already promised by the government that whatever they were getting from the government, they will be paid at their home now.
So what role will Islam, your religion, have in your future government and society here?
Our rules and regulation will be according to Islamic rules, and it's known to everyone that those Sharia, according to Shariat law, if the man has been caught that he is in theft cases or he is in robbery cases, there is certain that his hand will be cut. And we know that if a thief has been put in jail and after 2 or 3 months he has been released, or he has just paid someone as a bribe and he is released, he will continue the same business again. But if his hand has been cut, he will never do so. And the other people, when they see him that his hand was cut, they will never do the same thing. You see, for the last 2 years, we have cut few hands in Kandahar. Now you see that in entire 20 provinces, no one is going to dare to commit the same crime.
And stoning women?
Actually, according to our Islamic rules and regulation, I told you that an Islamic government which is coming on power, they will be stuck to Islamic rules and regulation, whatever is there.
So, does that mean yes?
I mean to say whatever is in Islam, in the rules and regulation, the punishment which is there for anyone, that will be implemented. We will be stuck to that.
If the Taliban wants to be recognized as the legitimate government of Afghanistan, as a founding member of the United Nations, you're going to have to abide by the UN declarations on human rights. How are you going to do that?
Actually, we are the only people who is observing strictly the human rights. Before those people, every day they were killing thousands of people, hundreds of people. The houses were looted. The females were abused. But now everyone is safe. If still the world is not recognizing or they are not happy with this situation, that's up to them.
What kind of relations do you want with the United States?
Throughout the history, we had friendly relation with the United States, and we would like to further increase that. And also we request them that they should establish their embassy and they should take their share and their part in the reconstruction of our country.
So right now, what plans do you have to implement sort of vital necessities here?
Right now, you know that we are just busy in a battlefield.
You talk a lot about peace and security, but how do you think you're going to achieve that if you won't even negotiate with your main opponent, Ahmad Shah Massoud?
Now Massoud has nothing on the ground. I can tell you that 80% of Massoud forces in equipment and his strength and power has been already finished.
But even the Soviets couldn't defeat Massoud nor flush him out of his stronghold where he's fighting north of here. And by all accounts, Massoud's force is not yet finished. He has just signed a new military alliance with another powerful faction leader, both telling the Taliban to leave Kabul or else. CNN's Anita Pratap traveled to the north to see how that alliance is holding.
This is the strongest militia in northern Afghanistan. Led by an ethnic Uzbek and former communist, General Abdul Rashid Dostum, headquartered in the town Mazar-e-Sharif. Backed by his militia, General Dostum has already turned the area under his control into a virtual separate nation with its own flag, currency, visas and airline. Over the years, General Dostum has raised a well-trained, loyal militia. He also has people's backing.
General Dostum has brought us peace. He has built roads, bridges, improved women's education.
The women may work, attend school, though many choose to wear the all-concealing chador. These northern Afghans, like their leader, General Dostum, consider themselves to be devout Muslims. Soldiers here have a gun in one hand, prayer beads in the other. But they reject Islamic fundamentalism. When the Taliban swept into Kabul in September, its leaders first tried to woo General Dostum, but the northern leader was not easily swayed. Known for cunning and shifting alliances, General Dostum has emerged as a crucial player in the current Afghan conflict. Rather than throw his support to the Taliban, General Dostum forged an alliance with his former bitter enemy, Commander Ahmad Shah Massoud. And General Dostum was recently declared the president of the newly created Supreme Defense Council of Afghanistan, which includes most major groups except the Taliban. In a rare interview to CNN, General Dostum issued an ultimatum to the Taliban.
This council has been created to bring peace, not to increase war. But we have the military power to enforce peace in Afghanistan.
But General Dostum is not the only military power battling the Taliban. Until last week, the bulk of the anti-Taliban fighting has been carried out by ousted government forces under Commander Massoud. Some of the fiercest battles have been fought just north of Kabul, where the former government forces have been trying to defend against a Taliban advance through the strategic Salang tunnel, which serves as the main gateway into the north. But now, with the alliance of General Dostum and the ousted government army, a powerful northern force has been created, a force which not only may prevent further advance of the Taliban, but may threaten the Taliban's hold on Kabul. Here at the 150-year-old mud fortress which serves as the headquarters for General Dostum, there is battle readiness and new optimism. For these militiamen, the next battle for Afghanistan is about to begin.
Afghanistan a few days ago, trying to put this story into perspective and get some answers to questions we couldn't ask there. Joining me in our London studios is Amir Taheri, journalist, specialist and author on the Middle East and Afghanistan. Mr. Taheri, thank you for joining us. Even the Iranians have said that the Taliban are more fundamentalist than we are. Does the Taliban represent the true Islamic path?
Not at all, although they may say so, but whatever they do is really strange as far as Islam is concerned. For example, their attitude to women, their fear of modernization, and their fear of education, especially for girls. It is quite unprecedented anywhere in the Muslim world, at least since the Middle Ages.
There was a feeling at first when they came to Kabul, people kind of welcomed them tentatively, expressing the hope that at least they would stop the war. But now there's disenchantment. Can these people actually govern Afghanistan?
Not at all. Their leadership is deeply divided. They are already fighting each other. They are dismissing each other. One of them says, I'm a minister of this and that. The other says, no, you are not a minister of anything at all. Some of them are more modern, quote unquote, and the others are really living in the Middle Ages. I don't think it's a coherent movement.
Well, how in 2 short years did this Taliban get organized and manage to sweep more than half of Afghanistan?
There are 2 reasons. First of all, the fighting among the other Mujahideen groups, and each of the rival factions was trying to use the Mujahideen against the others. And the second factor is, of course, Pakistani support. The Taliban are a baby of the Pakistani Interior Minister General Nasirullah Khan Babar. They have had lots of money. They have warplanes. I mean, they are supposed to be students of theology, but they have sophisticated weapons. They have warplanes, and they have organized an army.
Pakistan denies categorically having anything to do with the Taliban. Is that credible?
The minimum is that the Taliban bases existed in Pakistani territory when they invaded Afghanistan right from the start. All their satellite telephones pass through Afghanistan. If you want to talk to Mullah Muhammad Omar, the chief of the Taliban, your telephone calls go via Pakistan. Who is giving them the food? Who is giving them the money? There is really no chance for Pakistan to hide that.
Why should anybody these days care about what happens in Afghanistan?
Well, Afghanistan is becoming something like the center of the world. It might shock you, but the analysis is that the energy resources of the Persian Gulf are vulnerable because of the instability, etc., etc. There is a question mark over many regimes in the region. So an alternative to the Persian Gulf resources would be the Central Asian resources. But how to get them to the markets? Russia is one option, but Russia is far away, may return as a hostile power. Iran is an option, but Iran is ruled by radical mullahs, so it is out. That leaves us Afghanistan and Pakistan.
So it's once again resources, trade routes. Does the United States, is it right to be welcoming the Taliban?
I think the United States quite wrong in welcoming the Taliban. The United States should recognize the reality of Islam, but deal with moderate Muslims. There are many, many moderate Muslims. There is a civil war of ideas inside Islam between the reactionaries and the modernizers. The United States must be true to its own values and support the modernizers, not the Taliban, who are really absolutely the worst at the moment on the Islamic scene.
What about drug production and terrorism? They say that the Taliban now controls most of the area of Afghanistan that produces opium, and that drug production has gone up in the 2 years that the Taliban has been in control. And that comes where? To Europe and to the United States?
Absolutely. The Taliban control the lowland part of Afghanistan, and they are producing something like 75% of the world's heroin. In fact, Mullah Muhammad Omar, the chief of the Taliban, says we know this, but we can't do anything about it because it is the livelihood of the local people. But may I add that it's also a source of income, the 20% tax that the Taliban are exacting over heroin and opium production. As for terrorism, the Taliban have tolerated the existence of many terrorist camps. At least 13 different camps are known to exist. The list has been given to the Taliban leaders by the United States, by Pakistan, by Saudi Arabia. They haven't done anything about it.
All right, Mr. Tahri, thank you very much indeed. It's impossible to tell whether the Taliban will manage to hold on to Kabul or whether they will be eventually pushed out. One thing everyone has learned is never to predict the next military move in Afghanistan's great game, and the warlords are not done yet. But after nearly 2 decades of this miserable existence, the people simply want their suffering to stop. We close now with a report from Anita Pratap on that suffering.
The night the Taliban Islamic militia captured Kabul, Abdul Mateen, a street vendor, ran in panic.
I was terrified because I saw government troops leaving Kabul. There were sounds of shelling. I was desperate to get home.
Abdul hitched a ride on a gasoline truck. The truck was hit by gunfire and exploded. Abdul is one among the millions of innocent victims of the Afghan war. Women, children and men still lose limbs to landmines. An estimated 10 million still wait for a victim. 2 decades of war have transformed Afghanistan into a land of destroyed neighborhoods and graveyards, of cripples, widows and orphans, of refugees and gunmen. Shah Rasool was a former government soldier. Now he's on the run from the Taliban who shot him in the leg.
I fought as a mujahideen for 15 years, but then we were fighting Russian invaders. I cannot understand why we Muslims are now fighting each other.
This family resettled twice. Each time the battle followed them. Now they are fleeing for the 3rd time.
I hope for peace, stability and freedom so that we can repair our destroyed lives.
But as different groups battle for Afghanistan, the agony of this wounded nation drags on. Anita Pratap, CNN, Kabul.